down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show here on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And I'm just gonna give a couple of shout outs. First of all, to 3 Chevy over on Rumble. Welcome back. Secondly, I was asked, you'll notice right up here, you'll notice that I now have a closed caption going on. And the reason being is because I had a listener over on Facebook sent me a special request and asked, because they have an auditory challenge, to ensure that they can read my obviously they want to get together. But they essentially asked me if I could throw in some closed captioning. So this is what I'm taking care of. So hopefully it's big enough that they can see it. We're testing it out here. I actually put it into the video itself. It's not a special feature for any of the streaming outlets. It's actually going from my computer, going outbound, so it shows up regardless at or on anything. So I'm hoping that it catches most of what I'm saying. So anyway, we'll see. But anyway, all right. Tonight, I've got some information going on. I have some things that kind of change a little bit in terms of the upcoming elections in 2024. We have a new person who just got added into the mix. I have some information on January 6th. And okay, January 6th. All right. So you're saying it's a little small. Okay. I'll have to fix that for the next round. I'll see what I can do. Actually, you know what? Well, yeah. I'll have to fix that for the next video. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to catch it, but I'll fix it for the next video. Cuz I can't really do it in between or during the stream. So I will attempt to fix that for Saturday. So I have information on January 6th. I've got some revelations or potential revelations that, of course, we all knew about, but the liberal left is obviously sit there and continually going on and on and on about January 6th, the great insurrection, that kind of stuff. So anyway, and some more information on the economy. Unfortunately, I've on Twitter, I got into a little bit of we'll call it a discussion with I'm going to call him a gentleman. Don't know how old they are. I can tell you the account is, kind of interesting. They use a very interesting name. The screen name that they use is HUE, middle initial G, and then the last name is Rection, RECTION. And so, yeah, you could just imagine what it is there. But anyway, they showed their intelligence or lack thereof very quickly. And, I eventually just said, you know what, this is a waste of my time. I'm not even going to respond to him anymore. But it got me to thinking about all the possible, it's not like I haven't already gone through a whole bunch of information and demonstrated that the Biden White House is, essentially doing the manipulation of the numbers to demonstrate how wonderful the economy is when it's actually not all that great. And so, yeah, I just thought I'd bring it in. Plus, I've got a few other little odds and ends articles for tonight as well. I also have, for the pet of the week, I have a absolutely wonderful little dog. And, you know, if my wife is called Mama Whiskey, then this has to be Grandma Whiskey's pet, because of the fact that it's my mother's little fluff ball that we're going to be highlighting tonight. So anyway, I'm sorry. I'm looking at some of the comments about the Hugh G. Rection screen name out on Twitter. Anyway, it's okay. I digress. All right. So tonight, of course, this is Whiskey Wednesday, and Whiskey Wednesday is like Taco Tuesday, but of course it's for badasses. And welcome everybody for coming in. I do appreciate it. Also, because it is Whiskey Wednesday, of course, we will be highlighting my other venture, TGRN. True Grit Roots Network, TGRN, champions independent artists while paying respect to the pioneers who shaped modern roots music, featuring outlaw country, blues, and rock with a unique twist of urban that is carefully selected and purposely put together. We are the radio highway that connects the back roads, highways, and city streets to your favorite dance hall, roadhouse, and juke joint. TGRN provides original, exclusive programming and interviews that are produced and hosted by our own team of DJs, hosts, and personalities. Find us on the web at tgrn.net. to download our app in the App Store and from Google Play. Alternatively, you can find us in the Live 365 catalog of internet digital radio stations and through the Live 365 app as well. You can also play our station on your Amazon Alexa by saying, "Play True Grit Roots Network from Live 365. Be sure to use the word "from" in the command. Play True Grit Roots Network from Live 365. Live 365 is on Roku now as well. And TGRN also announces our newest sponsor, American Badass Whiskey from Garage Oil Spirits. American Badass Whiskey is a high-octane, extra-fine blend of American whiskey made for every hardworking man and woman that proudly puts in a solid day's work every day. Check out this new award-winning Texas whiskey at garageoilspirits.com. That website, once again, is garageoilspirits.com. Breaking boundaries for authentic roots radio, True Grit Roots Network, tgrn.net, Austin, Texas. And of course, like I said, that is my my affiliate partnership. Part owner. I am part owner, part whatever. I'm the technology guy for that, and we put out that kind of stuff. So that's awesome. Okay. Hi, Becky from Australia. Becky, you missed my starting monologue. I was talking about Hugh G. Rection. Becky was also involved a little bit with it, with the Twitter thing. Yeah, it's definitely compensation, folks. I'm sorry. Compensation is just, yeah. So anyway, all right. So let's go ahead and get this, started here. And, all right. So first things first, obviously we all know that, 2024 is, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm getting to the point where I think 2024 is actually a, make or break for this country. And the reason why I say that is because I don't know if anybody heard, but last Friday, Joe Biden signed an executive order that essentially put equity and inclusion standards across all levels of the executive branch. And it's basically a reverse, it's basically kind of like a reverse racism in a way. It's following along the same lines as the Ibram X. Kendi book. You know, you have to have reverse racism in order to fix the other racism that's going on. But anyway, Buddy just reminded me, and I'm going to do this just because I want to see what the heck happens here. Oh, perfect. It drops right below. That's awesome. Okay. Buddy just reminded me I have to get this here. This is Jameson Black Barrel. This is my favorite go-to. In the top number 1.5, I don't know, 1.25, something like that, along with Four Roses. Four Roses is up there as well. And of course, I am getting it with the rocks in the glass. You can see them down there toward the bottom. The stones, the whiskey stones. And yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. I hang on to that Crown Royal Black that I got from Buddy a while ago as a special treat. And I'm still hanging on to it for the time being. Redford, I am working on the hat. Okay. It's taking me some time because of the fact that I don't just want to necessarily sell them. Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to do something very special for them. I've had a couple of suggestions from people, so I'm still working out some of the details on how to get it done. As soon as I have something for you folks, I will go ahead and let you all know. Trust me. Okay. Enough about that. All right. So we had another entry into the 2024 race. We can't really necessarily specify Kanye or yay. Ye, ye, yo, whatever he's going by. We can't specify him as necessarily a proper contender. But what we can do is we can say, well, Trump jumped in almost immediately. We can say that, we have, Nikki Haley jumped in fairly quickly. And now we have Vivek Ramaswamy, and I would not be able to spell his out, so we'll just have to see. Yeah, it's Vivek. It might be Vivek. Maybe I'm looking at the closed captioning here to see if Vivek, Vivek. There we go. Anyway, he decided to announce yesterday or today. Actually, it looks like it's today's, but I think he announced it last night. So let me go ahead and bring that up here. I'll go ahead and show you that right here. Vivek Ramaswamy announces his 2024 presidential run. So first of all, what I know of Vivek is essentially he is a close friend, I'm going to say, or a close associate of Ben Shapiro. He has appeared on multiple stations, multiple news outlets and things to discuss a little bit about what's going on in the world and that kind of stuff. He is conservative, and he has a lot of conservative ideas, some strict constitutionalist type of ideas. However, I'm a little nervous with him, and I'm not necessarily ready to jump onto the bandwagon because of the fact that he has some questionable things. He might be, might be a little questionable for that. As far as, his claim to fame, according to what Amy is saying here, is that anti-woke is his claim to fame. And that's pretty much kind of it. He really, really, really doesn't like the woke left. His age, honestly, is probably going to be a big factor. He is 37 years old. Now, for those of you that have to grab your Constitution and take a look, you must be at least 36 in order to be president of the United States. So he just makes that barrier. He has a financial background. He also has a biomedical background. And he's a tech entrepreneur. He's got a lot of things that he's got going on. But again, I'm not exactly sure whether or not he's really ready for it. I know that like JFK was our youngest president and probably still is, because I can't think of anybody after him that has been, above that. But the thing about it is that he's got a lot of good ideas. I'm just not quite ready. I'm going to have to watch. I'm going to have to listen to him and see what he might be interested in from that. But to be completely honest, I'm not ready to jump on the bandwagon for him yet. However, I will say this much. With his entry into the race, that just dilutes the pool for the primaries just that much more, that much more giving more of an advantage to Trump because of the fact, if you recall, back in 2016, part of the reason why Trump was able to snag the nomination was because of the fact that there were a plethora of candidates. So the more candidates that we get into the race, the more, regardless of what the staunch old guard Republicans want, Trump will have the stronger, more likely to win in terms of a primary. So he actually getting more people into the primaries gives Trump an advantage. And actually, it's a fairly large advantage now, because back in 2016, he was sort of unknown when it comes to his, how he was going to do as president. Now, having Biden follow him as just an absolute trash of a president, that just leans the bar or gives Trump a little bit more of a stronger position to go with. By the way, Trump's visit to Ohio today, we'll talk about that in just a minute, but that actually also, it's things like that are going to cause his stock, let's say, to go up in terms of the presence of doing things in terms of the presidency. And I'm just going to be completely honest with you, as long as Trump can do that, just because of the fact that he has the capability monetarily to be able to do things like that, I think that is going to push his stock up higher and make him more and more of a beloved president, as if he isn't already beloved by many in terms of what he does. So realistically, I just kind of see, Vivek, I think he's a good possibility. I don't think a lot of people are really going to give him a lot of attention, especially right now, just because of the fact that he is younger and he's outside of certain circles. He is fairly unknown. Nikki Haley has a little bit more of an advantage on that in the fact that she has been a part of government. And so that is something to see. But the key here, though, is, and this is something that a lot of people really tend to miss when it comes to primaries like this, is the fact that most of the time, if you have one clear heavyweight in the mix, then the rest of the people in the field are basically kind of vying for jobs, either in the cabinet, or to actually fight for vice president and the position of vice president. Because of the fact that you generally, as a candidate, you generally don't have, all of the cabinet positions already marked out. You usually don't keep the cabinet members or even offer things to the cabinet members from the other party or whatever. So basically, as far as that goes, a lot of these people are essentially saying, hey, I'm going to run for president, even if I only get like 10% of the vote in the primary and end up getting nothing. I at least can throw my name into the hat in the ring for a cabinet position, a secretary position, to be part of the administration when it's built out, that kind of thing. And honestly, that's something that I think is entirely possible. I think Vivek could do a really good job in a cabinet or secretary level position. As in terms of what he could be doing, I don't know. I really, really, really don't know for sure where he would go. Maybe something in terms of treasury, because he is an entrepreneur. He is a businessman, just like Trump is, those kinds of things. So I could see that would be a positive, for him, to be able to do that. Now let's scoot on over for, the, of course, 45, the past President Trump showed up in Ohio today. As he said on Truth Social, he sent out his memo and said he was coming on Wednesday, and he did so. And as you can see in the photo, he got a huge response from everybody. He honestly, again, Trump is a dynamic figure. He knows how to work a crowd. He knows how to work the press. He knows how to do things sensational wise that are going to get him positive feedback and things like that. And honestly, it's stuff like this that, again, is going to raise his stock level. The more that he can make embarrassments out of the current administration, the better off he's going to be. To be, completely frank, I think that he should try and stay away from attacking his other primary contenders, especially pushing after people like Ron DeSantis, as an example. And I've got something on Ron here in just a minute. But the fact of the matter is that, he goes out to these places. He basically embarrassed, regardless of what you feel, he essentially embarrassed the administration into forcing them to send people out there. They weren't going to send FEMA. They weren't going to send any help. Pete Buttigieg didn't even want to go there. So on and so forth. And the EPA is now forcing, or is basically telling the railroad that they have to pay for all of the cleanup and stuff like that. It essentially took Trump to say, well, the government's not doing it, I'm going to head out there. And he went ahead and did it. And so he forced everybody in there, or in the government, to actually, go to the people of Ohio and try to help them out. He delivered bottled water and so on and so forth to that. And again, it's kind of like, if you think about it, it's sort of like Robin Hood taking the spoils from the rich and tossing them to the poor, and generating a lot of goodwill. Or if you think about, like Jesse James, when they stole from the railroad and they handed the money back to some of the poor in and around the Missouri, that's kind of one of the things that that he has the capability of doing. And I think he needs to keep this up. He needs to keep this kind of thing up. Now, in terms of our next guy, Ron DeSantis, first of all, he hasn't declared. Okay. And so all of this conversation about Ron DeSantis is going to do this, and he's going to go head to head to Trump, and they're going to do all these things. He hasn't declared yet. It's all wishful thinking in my mind. Because of the fact that the Democrats would love to see Trump and DeSantis go at each other. I've said it before and I'll say it again. They would love that. But I think that Ron has a little bit more to do in Florida. He obviously has a good track record so far. And, he's really, really, really doing a fantastic job. But he has now supposedly disclosed his timeline for a 2024 decision. Now, the headline is a little misleading in this, because I read through the article. It's not that long, but it doesn't really specify. He didn't actually, Ron did not actually come out and say, I will announce my decision on X date. He did not do that. Okay. What he did is he sort of hinted that there's a potential decision that'll come after the legislative session, the 60-day legislative session that's coming up in Florida. And he sort of hinted at the idea that the 60-day session will conclude on May 5th. And so he's pretty much not going to make any kind of decisions until that happens. Now, again, I'm telling you, I actually believe that Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump have a pretty decent relationship. They probably talk to each other on the phone, maybe not every day, maybe not every week, but I'm fairly certain that they do, or they have in the past. So I honestly think that some of this might be a ruse to like pick on the press and the left, and to sort of keep the mystique and keep something in the back pocket for, you know, Trump and the whole Trump DeSantis, and just make the left focus so much on that they have no idea, you know, what's going to go on. But anyway, I just don't, you know, again, I don't want to put a lot of credence to the whole idea of DeSantis running in 2024 until DeSantis actually says, I'm running for president in 2024. So all of this is conjecture and everything else. But honestly, I don't think it'll really matter anyway, because according to sources inside Joe Biden's campaign, he's actually going to go back to the basement for 2024. Oh, he apparently wants his 2024 campaign HQ to be again in his Wilmington home. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. How can this guy, I call him the basement dummy at times. But how can this guy literally, you know, be taken seriously? It's just horrible. Did you see the footage today? I mean, he's already like tripped once. We have that very famous one that's been totally memed with, you know, Chinese balloons knocking him over and things like that. But the reality of it is that he can't even walk up a flight of stairs to get onto Air Force One. So yeah, I just don't see him being able to run the same kind of campaign, unless of course the fix is in which case I'm probably going to get kicked off of YouTube now. But unless of course the fix is in. And so there we go. But anyway, so he wants to set up his campaign in his Wilmington home. I hope they've cleared it out of all the top secret documents that were in there. Okay. Now, there is one candidate or potential candidate that a lot of people have been looking at, especially in the Democrat Party. And they, excuse me for a second. And they honestly keep pushing this guy. And they keep talking about this guy, and they keep thinking, the left thinks that this guy is like God's gift to hair gel. I just gave you a hint. God's gift to hair gel. Well, this jackass, he's from the state that's south of me, much south of me. He's the guy that is reportedly the leader of the left coast league of not so extraordinary governors. Gavin Newsom. Now, why anybody would want this guy on or in the White House, and even on the White House lawn, I mean, shoot, I would like ban him from DC myself. But why this guy, why anybody would want this guy? Check this out from Breitbart. Gavin Newsom apparently underestimated the California deficit by $7 billion. That's billion with a B, folks. Billion. Okay. 7 billion. He underestimated the California deficit. This guy apparently can't even do math. He certainly can't figure out which bathroom he needs to go in. And as far as crime is concerned, he wants to give all the criminals a nice handshake and a hug and let them go on their way. This guy, he doesn't understand the basic process and principles about energy. He thinks that, California, which has brownouts and blackouts every single year since they've decided their entire green initiative. But he's been pushing and pushing. I mean, he's the nephew or something, I think, nephew, grandson, some kind of relation to Nancy Pelosi. So, clickety clack Nancy Pelosi. So anyway, I just don't see this guy really as a viable candidate. But hey, if they get rid of Joe Biden, or if Joe Biden happens to have something, horrendous happen to him between now and then, he is a contender and a possibility to jump back into the fold. You know, I don't know. I just can't figure this guy out. He reminds me a lot, and especially with this article coming out talking about the deficit. I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was a guy by the name of Governor Brown who was in charge of California, and Governor Brown actually bankrupted the state. Okay, let me say that again. Governor Brown bankrupted the state of California. Okay. And so, yeah, I can't see this guy. I really can't see, this guy, and the chat's like going crazy over the fact that he's related to Nancy. You know, I actually think it's Nancy Stretch Pelosi. That's Mark Levin's name for her. Because she's had so much plastic surgery that her eyebrows are actually in the middle of her forehead rather than being over her eyes where they should be. But anyway, so we have another election process that's going on when it comes to, you know, the whole election fraud, election issues, 2020 problems, et cetera, et cetera. And this popped, which, I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is not that unexpected. I mean, I fully expected this person to go ahead and go and do. But Kari Lake has confirmed that she is taking her election lawsuit to the state Supreme Court. Okay. Kari Lake's a fighter, and she always has been. She's smart. She's very opinionated, but she also is very conservative, and she's a fighter. And I think she has a case. I mean, the mere fact that Hobbs oversaw in her position as Secretary of State of Arizona before getting placed into the office of governor, I actually think that Kari Lake has a case if she can get a friendly judge, and by friendly, I mean a judge who is interested in the truth, who is interested in, the blind, the whole thing, the whole concept of blind being, justice being blind kind of thing. She actually has an argument that can be made. And so I'm proud to see this. I'm actually pretty happy to see this. It'll be interesting to see what sort of a thing she gets out of it. And of course, if the state Supreme Court kicks her out, I'm sure she'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States, which, speaking of which, for everybody that was very interested in the whole Brunson case, I called it, it's a long shot. Now, their first approach failed. Their second approach now has failed as well. The Supreme Court won't even look at it. And honestly, I mean, again, it goes back to that whole standing thing that I discussed in one of my videos not too long ago, in terms of the fact that you have to have one of the three conditions has to be that the court can do something about it. And so there is some question, especially with the time that has passed, that the Supreme Court wouldn't have a reason or wouldn't have a capability of, just removing Joe Biden, which is what they were asking for, removing Joe Biden to go. Now, 3 Chevy is asking any kind of timeline on this. Let me see. I don't recall off the cuff. She says without providing a specific timetable, Lake said that she will appeal to the Supreme Court, hopefully in the next couple of weeks or so. So they don't really have much of a timeline on this. And she made a Twitter post on February 16th, the day the appellate court actually rejected her suit. And she said, "I told you we would take this case all the way to the Arizona Supreme Court, and that's exactly what we are going to do. Buckle up, America." So that was back on February 16th. So I'm guessing, I mean, it's going to happen. Well, law kind of moves really slow. So anyway. All right. Let me back up here because I have to catch myself up on everything here and figure out what my next, is this the one? Oh, so as kind of a tiny little bit of a break here. We all know that the Hunter Biden laptop thing, I mean, I've talked about it extensively. Dan Bongino's talked about it extensively. Mark Kay has talked about it extensively. Mark Levin has talked about it extensively. We all know that the laptop is real. We all know that the information inside it is real. We all know that it all implicates Joe Biden and his son Hunter in a pay for influence peddling scheme with at least 2 or 3 other foreign powers, one of them being China, potentially the other one being Ukraine. And now there's a possibility with the whole FBI discovery. Dan Bongino does a great job talking about this, but the FBI agent that was key in Albania having a very close tie with the Bidens. So, you know, we have a lot of things going on. Well, apparently the House Oversight Committee has asked and has started an investigation into Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's potential business dealings with foreign entities. Okay. And so he now has 3 hours and 20 minutes roughly to respond to a requestion or a deadline for Hunter Biden to produce documents with regards to his whole business dealings. And so now the House Oversight Committee, according to Fox News, is mulling whether or not they want to send out a subpoena if Hunter Biden misses his deadline, which again, like I said, is like 3 hours and 20 minutes away. You know, I'm using Eastern time as an example, but 3 hours and 20 minutes away to doing his subpoena of Hunter Biden's records. To hand over documents with his foreign business dealings or else face a potential subpoena from Republicans. Now, I don't know if anybody has really recognized, but Hunter went and tried to sue some people for, I think it was libel, because of the laptop and the conversation of the laptop. And, you know, he was saying that, you know, to shut up about it. It wasn't his, you're defaming his character, whatever it was. And then a couple days later, he basically goes on Twitter and essentially says, hey, I'm going after anybody that's doing this. So he essentially, by that simple action, he essentially said, that laptop's mine, which for the longest time, they denied the fact that the laptop was actually his for a while. So anyway, it's, you know, again, the wheels of justice and the wheels of the law turn very slowly. So we don't have any serious, you know, things that are out there on this. But the fact of the matter is that, yeah, he is being investigated. The House Oversight Committee is working on it. And because he went ahead and confirmed the fact that the laptop is there and it's his, that also by proxy basically confirms that the information, any of the information that's gleaned from the laptop is also his. So yeah, he's just getting into a bad situation. Now, I'll be honest with you. I actually floated the idea that it is actually Hunter Biden that is providing information to the government in order to avoid jail time for the stuff that he's been doing. And that's why they found that FBI agent who was connected to Hunter Biden and connected to Albania with a possible influence peddling scheme or setup for that area. I floated that idea. That is a allegation. I have nothing to say whether or not that's happening or not. However, it would be kind of interesting to find out that that actually ended up being true. I mean, we haven't really seen anything of Hunter Biden. Honestly, we haven't really seen a lot of him other than his lawyers saying that, you know, it was illegal for the shop owner to actually give the laptop over, which ironically Hunter Biden signed the contract, which essentially says if I don't get payment over a certain number of days, I think it was like 45 to 90, that the property becomes mine and I can do what I want with it. And so, you know, I think that's a pretty airtight case. I don't think that Hunter really has a leg to stand on. He just, in his cocaine stupor, went ahead and dropped it off at the shop and then forgot about it. So anyway, all right. Give me just a second. I got to clear out my throat here. All right. So that's an update there. Now let's move on to the next item on the list, which has to deal with the January 6th, worse than 9/11, worse than the Civil War insurrection, which isn't an insurrection because nothing happened. It wasn't an armed insurrection either. Yeah. Anyway, so the biggest story on this, sorry, it's just, I tried throwing in a little comedy there. It may not have panned out very well. Anyway, so everybody is really pissed about the 44,000 hours of video that was taken on January 6th. And the January 6th committee, of course, went through it, supposedly, cut it down to a small amount of specific things, to demonstrate that maybe Trump might have possibly, by, communicating through 3 cousins on his mother's uncle's side, that he could have, done something to egg this thing on. Shit. We all know that isn't the problem. Okay. We all know that isn't something that happened. Well, Speaker McCarthy, when he came in, he got elected as Speaker of the House, he made a statement that he would release all 44,000 hours of video to the public. And the nice thing about it is he decided to send it off to what the left believes is a complete conspiracy theorist, but he went ahead and handed it all over to a guy who has been breaking, news left and right about the left, and, getting scoops and the truth and so on and so forth on this. And here we go. Speaker McCarthy gives Tucker Carlson the January 6th surveillance footage. Now, the thing about this is Tucker has actually come out and he says, look, I don't know what we're going to find, but we're going to go through all of this in the next week. And by the end of the week, he will have some sort of a synopsis or whatever with regards to it. And the thing about it is I'm sure there's a bunch of benign crap in it. So it's going to take him a little bit of time to go through that many hours, unless he's got a massive team of people who can, dig through it. But realistically, I'm guessing that he will have something. If it's there, he's going to find it. Now, a lot of people on the right are saying things like, well, why did you just release it to Tucker Carlson and not to the public? I can see the strategy here. I can understand it because you're giving it to a media outlet who is going to give it a scoop and actually, put it through the test and figure it out. So, I can see where this is a good thing. Honestly, I think it is. And ironically, it has the advantage of scaring the shit, and yes, I said shit, of the people who are on the left, who were part of the January 6th committee. I don't have an article on this, but I know that Adam Schiff, as soon as he found out that McCarthy gave it to Tucker Carlson, he just flipped out on Twitter. He went almost completely ballistic. I mean, as much as Mr. Bug Eyes can do. But he literally was talking about how Tucker Carlson is a right-wing conspiracy theorist and blah, 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 et cetera, in his shifty shift way. Even though Schiff fell for the PP tape hoax, fell for the Russian collusion hoax, said he had all kinds of information that Trump actually did collude with the Russians when it was all fake, it was totally made up, so on and so forth. But anyway, the point being here is that the left is going nuts over this move, which is part of the reason why I think Speaker McCarthy has actually done it. That being said, the other one that is freaking out about it is the January 6th committee chair. And he is claiming that there are security concerns over sharing the footage with Tucker Carlson. And actually, Adam Schiff also mimicked, I guess, mirrored, I guess that's the word I'm looking for, mirrored his concerns. And so he essentially is saying that there is a potential that if the footage is viewed completely in the public eye, that there could be some security issues and the possibility that in 2024, somebody could go ahead and do it again. Now I'm going to tell you this. I don't have the articles. Unfortunately, I can only grab so many. But there was conversations about the footage that's been released. And there has been at least one person in the Twitter sphere that has been posting clips and snippets, parts that have been coming out in a trial that is going on. Now, we all know that the January 6th, there have been January 6th trials for a lot of this stuff. A lot of these people have been charged with trespassing. They had, the leader of the Oath Keepers. They had a bunch of other people. They had the Proud Boys leader. He supposedly is going to be charged or whatever, has been. I don't know. I don't even know. There's just so many things that are going on with this. But one person in particular, his Twitter handle is Free State Will. And he came out and shows through some of the video that there's a potential that this actually is or was a setup based off of agent provocateurs that are in the crowd. And this is just a snippet of a clip where the claim that came out in the trial is the fact that there were undercover officers who essentially encouraged and even egged on some of the protesters to jump over the barricades and go into the Capitol building. And one of them actually even talks about potentially where somebody's going to get shot and things like that. There's also little clips of video where the officers on the inside, the uniform officers on the inside, were describing how to identify the undercover officers that were on the outside. For an example, they specifically talked about having an armband, some sort of a wristband. They talked about them carrying guns, but that the guns had a special candy stripe sticker on the barrel or something along those lines. And so, I can't validate this. However, one of the reporters for the Epoch Times has validated some of this and wrote this article about undercover DC police officer pushed protesters toward the Capitol and climbed over the barricade himself. This is part of the court filing. Now, if you recall, I mentioned that court filings, even if the end result of the trial doesn't go your way or whatever, during the process, and especially the part during discovery, is where things really can get interesting and are sometimes more important than just the trial ending for itself. Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's 3 undercover Metropolitan Police Department officers that joined in the march of the protesters up the northwest side of the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, including one who climbed over the barricade, pushed others toward the Capitol, and another who walked behind Ashley Babbitt and predicted that someone will get shot, according to newly disclosed court documents. The new filings by January 6th defendant William Pope of Topeka, Kansas, also show MPD bicycle officers stopping 4 armed men in plain clothes on January 6th. The men actually turned out to be federal agents. Video included with Pope's filings also show uniformed MPD officers saying we were set up to fail on January 6th. Now, again, this trial actually is probably one of the best trials that we've seen so far. But I've also seen articles where they've talked about like maps that were found at the Proud Boys leader's house or found in his email that was sent to his wife. Maps of like 3 buildings circled saying we're gonna take these buildings over. There's even some indication that those maps were actually forwarded to his wife's email by a person who has deep intelligence ties with the United States government. So, it's just, this is blowing up. This is totally blowing up in their faces. And so anyone who sits here and talks about January 6th being an insurrection, yes, it was a riot, but it was also potentially instigated by some of the police officers that were there. Ashley Babbitt in particular, got shot and killed, by the Capitol Police. And if you look, you could even make a case that she was literally murdered, not just killed, but murdered. And there is a video. I watched it. It's a little sickening to watch. It was, done on a cell phone, so the quality isn't that great. It's probably been emailed around and stuff like that, but it is pretty sickening to watch her hear the gun go off, watch her fall back and fall to the floor. And it's just, So anyway, the whole case in point here also rests on the fact of who was to blame for the lack of security. And there's absolutely no way to get around it. I've talked about this before. The District of Columbia, which is a 10 square mile area that is specifically set up in the Constitution as to not being beholden to any state that it might reside in, the Congress has control and is responsible for everything within that 10 square mile area. So what that means is the person in charge of the House of Representatives, which was Nancy Pelosi at the time, had all the control in the world for what happened. And she knowingly stopped and refused the offer from Donald Trump to bring in the National Guard, which allegedly might have prevented something like this from happening. So I'm sorry, liberals, if you're out there and you're listening to this broadcast, you are completely wrong. Donald Trump didn't instigate it. Donald Trump did nothing for it. And it looks like now there is a case that could be made that the Metropolitan Police Department officers and some FBI agents were agent provocateurs in the crowd. There's also some conversation about re-examining, I can't think of Ray Epps and Ray Epps's involvement, because there is video. I've seen it. There's a lot of other video, a lot of video out there about this, but there's video that the previous night, Ray Epps was instigating the crowd saying, we need to go into the Capitol building. We need to take the Capitol building. And he hasn't been charged on anything, by the way. So there's a potential, and he claims that he didn't work for the FBI. But there's also some question in terms of what's going on. So I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of stuff that is going on here. And it's going to be interesting to watch as things unfold, especially with the videos coming out, and Tucker Carlson, with the videos, et cetera, dealing with that. All right. So I'm going to take a second, get a drink. And oh my gosh, I have been talking for quite some time. So you know what? Let me clear these things off the board here so that I know that I've discussed them. And before I move on to my next topic, let me go ahead and get to...
Please check your mailbox. A new message has arrived.
Our pet of the week. And like I said in the beginning, the pet of the week, the pet of the week this week is a submission by none other than Grandma Whiskey. Let me go ahead and, gotta get this, and I gotta get that out of the way. All right, so everybody knows, if you've been listening to this, everybody knows that I personally have the belief that anything under 30 pounds is not a dog. Okay. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, for all of you people who have Chihuahuas and little Shih Tzus and Pomeranians and all those other little pocket dogs and purse dogs and whatever. You're going to give me a lot of crap for that, but I'm sorry. They're just not dogs to me. Okay. And that goes with, or for, this little pup. So this is Lily. And Lily, I'm going to tell you, she's described as a great watchdog. I'm not going to lie to you. She is absolutely fantastic when it comes to that. In fact, Lily might be a little over exuberant with, Lily might be a little over exuberant with how she guards the property. I've spent time with her, obviously visiting my mother and things like that. And my mom has this picture window in her front living room, and the picture window essentially has like a seat on it. It's like a window seat. I mean, you've seen the picture windows where they kind of poke out, and yeah. So she has a little seat on up next to the window, and she goes there and she watches down the street, and she will bark at anything that freaking moves on that street. I mean, I'm sorry, but the street belongs to Lily. That's just how it is. And apparently my mother was telling me the other day that she was outside, and she with my mom, they were walking, I guess, doing a walk. And Lily decided to start barking at something. And then next thing you know, she ended up getting the two neighbor dogs involved. They were having a conversation, a full-on conversation, sitting out there barking and everything else. So anyway, Lily also loves to go in the car. And I can attest to this. She does. She is a great car rider. She will go and get in and sit on your lap, or, put her paws on the edge of the door. And if you roll down the window, she loves to sniff the air and that kind of stuff. And so, she is just a wonderful little dog. This photo is actually after she's been groomed and clipped. Cause believe me, when she's kind of one of those dogs that when she gets fluffy and everything, she looks like a stuffed animal with the hair everywhere and so on and so forth. And hair over her eyes and everything else. And there's times when my mom will actually go, away, obviously coming up here to visit my sister and me, and that kind of thing. And she will then go over to a friend's house, and she'll socialize with her friends, Princess and Harvey, as a guest at times. Great little dog. And also there are times where she'll get haircuts and stuff that make her look like an Ewok from the Star Wars. I believe it was Return of the Jedi was where the Ewoks are. But anyway, that's Lily. She's a wonderful partner for my mom. Even though she can be a pain in the ass, I still love her. Okay, but don't tell my mom that. Anyway, if you would like to submit your pet for Pet of the Week, please do so at fans, that's FANS, at whiskeymusings.online. It's fans at whiskeymusings.online. And you can send me a photo of your pet, give me a description, breed, name, maybe a little story. If you want, I can and give me some details. I might be able to embellish and give a little bit more of a story. But anyway, go ahead and do so and send it to me, email it to me. I have nobody in the queue. I don't think, no, I take that back. I do have one more in the queue for next week, which is perfect. And so that you can just submit any time in the next week and we'll be good to go. So I do have next week covered. I also need to have a question for whiskey, I believe, for Saturday. You can submit those to the same place, fans. That's Foxtrot Alpha November Sierra at whiskeymusings.online. You can do that there anytime. And I do need one for Saturday night. That is my questions for whiskey night. I had to think about that for a second. But anyway, so that was the pet of the week. Thank you, Grandma Whiskey, for submitting Lily for tonight's pet of the week. That was great. Glad to share her with everybody. All right. Okay. Last group of articles, as far as like the big group, before I get to some of the little namby-pamby stuff that's out there. Joe Biden has been touting multiple times. He's been touting the fact that he's, gotten all kinds of jobs. He's done more jobs in his 2 years than anyone has ever done in their 4 years. And I think I've proven multiple times, and I've shown you articles and people who have run the numbers, and they actually know that the jobs are not as big as what Joe Biden wants you to believe. For an example, he touts that he's gained 12 million jobs, but when you actually run the numbers, 10 million of those 12 are regaining from the COVID shutdown. So Joe Biden is actually using the COVID shutdown, honestly. He's using the COVID shutdown as a kind of a springboard for him to be able to manipulate some of the numbers, because we've never gone through a pandemic like that before. We've never artificially shut down our economy. We've never put it into a state of stasis for a year or 6 months or 8 months, whatever it ended up being. And so because of that, a lot of the stuff that he touts and everything else is unprecedented. So you can't realistically compare his numbers today to any numbers that we have from before. However, his continual touting of the economy being better than anyone else, and of course, Karine Jean-Pierre and the White House, and I mean, I see it all over Twitter and everything else. People are always talking about, oh, the economy is so great. Joe Biden is so awesome. He's a financial wizard. He is, he's the guy behind the curtain and just make crap work. Well, honestly, he's not. He isn't. And his own government is the one that's demonstrating that this is not the case, that everything, and if you look at things like businesses in particular, a lot of businesses are actually cutting back on jobs. They're actually laying people off. The tech sector, so on and so forth. You've got a lot of the financial and economic experts are saying that we're headed toward a potential recession, all of these things. And so anyway, this came out, and this article is from Just the News, and it basically says that the GAO, otherwise known as the Government Accountability Office, warns that the U.S. is on an unsustainable financial path. Okay. In fiscal year, and this is the subheadline, in fiscal year 2022, the federal government spent $6.27 trillion and collected only $4.9 trillion in revenue, resulting in a 1.38 trillion deficit, according to the U.S. Treasury. Okay. Now, one thing that did come out was the CBO, or the Congressional Budget Office, did give a report. I talked about it on this program, that the Trump tax cuts actually paid for themselves and increased the anticipated revenue for the years that the tax cuts were in place. But that being said, this whole idea, because Joe Biden rescinded the tax cuts for these years, and we're just now getting into them, it's basically we're losing money. We are spending money as a government left and right. And Congress is continuing to spend more money than it collects in taxes. And Joe Biden himself is the one that keeps pushing spend, spend, spend. He wants to spend that money. And realistically, and by the way, 3 Chevy, funny. No, I wish I could write that check. That would be a dream for me. But the thing about it is that Joe Biden is running around the entire globe. He's heading off to places like, Ukraine and Poland. And Ukraine, when he went over to Ukraine, he promised another $500 million to them in support of their war effort. We're eventually going to go broke if we don't stop. And the same thing goes with the whole idea of like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. I'm sorry, but we're going to have to make some serious, tough decisions coming up fairly soon. We cannot continue this. And this whole idea, I've shown it before. I'll show it again, I'm sure. But this whole idea that the rich are not paying their fair share, they are paying way more than their fair share. They are getting taxed out the yin yang. If Joe Biden wants to tax unrealized capital gains, that's going to be a bit of a problem, because what do rich people do with their money whenever they're getting ready to get taxed and get it taken away? Well, they hire a lawyer. That lawyer finds a loophole and either sends the money offshore or something along those lines. So Joe Biden is just a complete, he's asinine. His entire administration thinking that all of this stuff is going to be good is not good at all. Not good at all. So the gentleman in the article here, Daniel Smith, an economics professor at Middle Tennessee State University, said overspending at a federal level is no surprise. It has been known by economists and politicians for a while that our current level of spending is unsustainable. Our current debt to GDP ratio ranks the United States as one of the highest in the world. Most of the other countries in that category are not doing well economically. And the United States debt is underreported because it doesn't include unfunded liabilities, which raises our debt to over 200 trillion. Let me say that number again, 200 trillion. Okay. That's a huge number. I can't even think of what that number is. I mean, I don't even think I've got enough zeros to handle that. Holy crap. Anyway, while the federal budget may have many decimal places, Smith said most Americans understand that you can't sustainably spend more than you earn. He says debt can be undertaken if it is used for productive investments, but it is a bad idea for funding current consumption. He said, most of what the U.S. is spending money on, of course, is current consumption, meaning transfers, and not productive investments. He also said the federal government is moving toward a situation where a debt service cost can potentially become the biggest budget item of the U.S. government. In other words, all those interest payments, the interest payment is what's going to go. So yeah, anyway, but it's not just this that is causing any kind of concern. If you check out this, U.S. home sales post the 12th straight monthly decline as house price inflation cools. So we're starting to see kind of like the real estate bubble. We're starting to see that pop. And real estate, honestly, is like one of the best investments. It constantly gets touted as one of the best investments that anyone can make is to own land. And speaking about that, who would be more inclined to be interested in investing money? Well, it would be venture capitalists, as an example, because they obviously invest money to make money. Well, here, another article, U.S. venture capital investment dropped 65% in 2022, the lowest level since 2013. I'll give you a hint. Who was president in 2013? Barack Obama. And we were in a recession throughout most of Barack Obama's tenure. Okay. But it's not just venture capital investments. It's not just home sales. It's not just, those indicators as well. The stock market itself. Now, the stock market closes. Now, this is yesterday's news. Okay. Dow Jones closes nearly 700 points lower in broad sell-off as all indexes cap their worst day of 2023. So we haven't even been in 2023 for more than 2 months. In fact, we're coming up to the end of the month next week, but they've already had their worst day in 2023. And the stock market, I can tell you, my 401k that I've been watching, I try not to watch, because the minute that I do, I start getting depressed in terms of the amount of money that I'm losing as a part of my 401k. Okay. So, Mark K. Anyway, so the point here is that no matter what Joe Biden tells you and tries to, in the White House and Karine Jean-Pierre, no matter what they tell you, our economy is essentially in the toilet. It's not 1980s level yet, but our economy is definitely in the toilet. Now, all right, let me just take a second and take a little time check here. Whoops. Take a second, a little time check. Okay, I think I've got enough time to basically pop up one more series of articles. Now, I don't know if anybody is a Dan Bongino, or not Dan Bongino, Ben Shapiro fan. Okay. Geez, I might have to go for a refill. But I don't know if anybody is a Ben Shapiro fan, but he did on his podcast today, he was talking about the uptick in violence within our schools. And I don't know if you've seen all these videos that are running around on the internet and everything else that are, showing kids, high school kids beating up on elementary school kids, middle schoolers, kids being attacked in hallways and, being kicked, mobbed. Bullying was a problem when I was in school, but the schools had the ability to suspend kids, to expel kids, to enact some sort of a punitive punishment for their actions. And so, now, because of this whole idea of equity and inclusion, and especially with the idea that persons of color are being unfairly targeted by those punitive damages or punitive actions, it's because of the fact that, they're essentially starting to do a hands-off approach to everything. Very similar to the idea that you want to back your cops off, you want to back off and defund the police, that defund the police idea. Well, apparently it's now expanded beyond just police officers. It's now expanded beyond the idea that, that taking responsibility and ensuring accountability for your actions is becoming a foreign thought process for this. And let me go ahead and kind of show you what I mean, because Democrats apparently in Minnesota are looking to make a big change to corrections. And they've got a new bill that they're introducing that Minnesota inmates can actually be released after serving just half of their prison sentences if they participate in a certain amount of programming or a certain set of programming. I mean, this is ridiculous. They're already like releasing these people out on the streets and everything else. They're already releasing them and letting them go with just slaps on the wrist and everything else. Now, those who actually do get convicted and incarcerated are now no longer serving their full-term sentences. They want to let them out. I mean, this is utterly ridiculous. I can't even understand. I honestly, I can't even understand where this thought process is going from. Where did we lose the idea that responsibility and accountability are some of the key pillars of a modern and civil society? I just can't. Oh my God, I just can't even think this. Well, thankfully, the city down here in Seattle, the whole Chaz Chop idea, they are actually reaping some of the benefits of what they sowed. And Seattle itself is reversing course on defunding the police as crime ravages locals, a huge crisis. So now they have increased funding so that Seattle has actually figured it out that defunding the police was not the methodology to use. And so now they are increasing funding for law enforcement ever since 2020, which the whole Chaz Chop thing. Seattle also, believe it or not, lost a case, and they are paying restitution charges. If I recall the number correctly, I think it's like $3.6 million to the business owners and residents of the area where the Chaz Chop was set up, because apparently a lot of vandalism. There were a couple teenage kids that unfortunately got killed during that whole lawless time frame and everything else. And so, yeah, it's just this is crazy. I'm seriously hoping that the pendulum is swinging the other way. I mean, I'm already seeing some signs of it with like the revivals in the Midwest and that kind of stuff. And I'm seriously hoping that we're going to get some things moving the other direction, although it's going to be a long, hard process. But to just give you some statistics here, the homicides during the 2020 to now spot, apparently in Seattle, they skyrocketed 24%. Motor vehicle thefts climbed 30%, and both of those just in the last year. Overall crime has ticked up by 4% just in the last year. So yeah, I mean, sorry, folks, listen, I'm just going to tell you, a civil society needs to respect law and order. If you cannot get a respect for law and order, then you have to enforce it. It's a plain and simple, very simple process, which I call the power of deterrence. The same thing. It's like Ike said, speak softly and carry a big stick. You cannot sit here and just appease and hope that these people will actually jump onto the proper path. They're already breaking the law, people. They're already breaking their word. They're already going against society. What makes you think that if you look at them and say, oh, it's okay, darling, don't worry, you won't get in trouble, that these people are not going to take advantage of that? It's just not. I mean, I don't even know where they got this idea. This is just a pain in the I'm done. I'm just pissed. All right. So I have a couple other articles. If you really want to take a look in the show notes. There's a couple other things. There is a really good article. I'm not going to go through it, but I'm going to show you this. There is a fantastic article here talking about a national divorce versus federalism. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, really quickly, Marjorie Taylor Greene put out a tweet that we actually needed a national divorce. And I've said on this program, and I keep maintaining on this program, you cannot just separate states into red states, blue states. That is so simplistic. It does not cover what is actually happening here. And the reason that I say that is places like Oregon, Washington, California, and New York are essentially falling victim to the fact that they have cities who are complete morons and are dictating the entire state, even though the cities don't understand what it takes for those rural areas. And so realistically, what we have is we have cities that are doing the whole majority rules. This is why I am a huge advocate for the Electoral College. I actually think it should have made its way down to the states, considering the position that we're in today in terms of how things are being governed. Most of the states deal with simple majority rules in all of their elections and everything else. And so what you end up having is you have a bunch of urban dwellers who have no idea what it takes in terms of a rural situation, or they just throw stuff in with all of that. And I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. Well, one of the initiatives that are running out there with regards to this is the fact that 11 counties in the state of Oregon have voted to join Idaho State. And there's been a similar initiative to kick off for Washington as well. But the fact of the matter is that until you get a clear grasp on the idea that no matter what happens, every single red state has a blue city within it. And until you grasp the idea and figure out a way to break up the country in such a fashion that the cities are their own autonomous and authoritative fiefdoms and the rural areas take care of their business, we are not going to be able to break up this country in a very easy fashion. We also have a lot of other things that are running around, like who gets nuclear material, who gets, even now with a lot of like the electrical grid and everything else, there's places like Washington and Oregon and Nevada that sends a lot of their electricity into California. And honestly, I think the best way, if you look it up, New York has a suggestion that they break up the state into smaller administrative districts. They keep the state together, but they break it up into administrative districts, and New York City has its own administrative district, and the rural areas that are in upstate New York and so on and so forth can be their own administrative districts. So in other words, you not only have like your local city government and state government, you would have maybe local, county, and then something higher than county between the county and the state as a possibility. But the fact of the matter is that there is no clean way to break up the country. If you're looking to do it, there's no clean way to do it. We have way too many questionable situations and specialized situations that are going to be really difficult to handle and break amicably, to be honest with you. And that's part of the reason why, some people consider that civil war is coming. But anyway, the point being here is that we just got to fix what's wrong, honestly, and we got to put our efforts toward fixing what's wrong, because I don't think there's an easy way for us to go ahead and break up the country if you're really looking to do so. It's like a lot of people are like, just put a wall along the border of the eastern borders of Washington, Oregon, and California, and just let the whole left coast, they call it the left coast, go away. Well, the only problem with that is there are a ton of good people that live in those states that are not raving lunatic leftists. And that really is doing a disservice to those folks. All right, that is my final Whiskey Musings thought of the evening. Do me a favor. If you like what I am doing, please head on over to Rumble. Go to rumble.com/C/Whiskey Musings Broadcast. Find my channel, sign up for an account. It is free. And then go and hit that little follow button and follow me. I am trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2023. I am seriously behind, way behind. I've been hanging at 485 or 489 for several days now. This is not good. I need your help. Please get over there. If you haven't subscribed, please head over there and subscribe. I know I transmit on YouTube and Facebook, but I'm really watching the Rumble stuff, and I really, really hope that I can get and make something at least close to that. I do appreciate all of your time and energy for coming in. Hopefully this has helped out people, the closed captioning thing. I'll probably have to review it and make sure and see what the accuracy was. And for one last thing, I'm just going to say, go water moccasins. We'll see you Saturday night on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody.